Welcome back in beautiful Denmark. Fantastic view this is. Still lush and green, and we already had some rain today, just like we had in yesterday's stage. The stage won by Søren Werenskjold, and he is the rider in the blue leaders jersey. So we will see him a little bit later on. We race from Kjellerup to Silkeborg, 163.6 kilometers. It's the shortest road stage. Of course, on Saturday we have a time trial, but it's the shortest road stage of the four, and it's a pretty challenging one. We've got a local circuit where we have pretty decent climbing, about 3k out from the finish line. And this is a little summary of the stage's start, especially Julius Johansson here in the colours of the Danish national team. Very active at the front. You can recognise him by his brightly coloured helmet, because of course normally he races with Intermarché Vanti. He's joined by 5 fellow Danes and 1 man from the UK. There he is, Mark Stewart. We already had our first sprint for the King of the Mountains. That was won by Henrik Pedersen, one of our 6 Pedersens in the race, ahead of Jensen and Askov Jeppesen. And then we also had an intermediate sprint, or a Skoda sprint as it's called, where you can have points towards the points classification, exactly the same jersey as we have in the Tour de France, but most importantly 3, 2 and 1 bonus seconds. This man, Julius Johansson, is just 16 seconds behind our leader in the GC. So he is now our virtual leader, 13 seconds in the GC behind Werenskjold, and another 2 minutes and a little bit on the peloton. It's a day where we already had some rain, but for the moment the sun is out. We started in Kjellerup, basically go towards the south with our climbs and our sprints, and then back to Silkeborg, which is just 30 kilometers, 25 kilometers to the south of our start town, basically. There it is, the blue leaders jersey on the very broad shoulders of Søren Werenskjold, winner of stage 1 in the Tour of Denmark. And of course his team are leading the peloton, chasing these 7 leaders. My name is Jose Bain, with me is Brian Smith. And Brian, the riders will be happy there is some sun out today.
Yeah, of course everybody's happy with a little bit of sun. Maybe not too much in the heat department for some riders, but yeah, good racing conditions, you know, definitely into double figures, around about 18-20 degrees. Sun is out. We had a torrential storm yesterday, but yeah, light rain earlier today, and a good breakaway. 7 riders. This is your virtual leader on the roads, and Uno X have got something to ride on the front for.
Yeah, it's a pretty challenging course today. You mentioned yesterday, Brian, that in your illustrious career you won the GP Herning, which is just to the west of where we are racing now. What kind of course are we looking at today?
To be honest with you, it looks harder than it is. It's undulating. There's quite a lot of small roads around this area. There's quite a lot of gravel. And farm tracks and things like that. In the race last year, I remember that we took on a couple of sections, but it's just more kind of rolling than anything else. I don't think I wouldn't worry too much about this. The biggest thing in this part of the world, said it yesterday, was the wind. The wind is a westerly. Okay, it's stiff enough at 18 kilometres an hour, but I don't think it'll have too much bearing on the race today. A bit like yesterday, once we get onto these laps, and the smaller laps towards the end, 3 laps, 9.7, but as you say, there's about 3 kickers and 1 up to the line. I don't think it will worry too many riders that were up there yesterday. Uno X are the only team riding on the front. They have to, purely because there's 2 riders in the breakaway. It started at 16 seconds and 1 is taking 3 seconds bonus. So they have to ride. But I would think that the way that Mads Pedersen was riding yesterday, I'm sure he's recovered overnight, but surely Lido Trek are the team to beat today.
Yeah, most definitely. They have, of course, Matthias Skelmos, although I saw an image before that there he is. He has a bandage on his arm. I didn't see him crash yesterday. Sadly, we did lose 4 riders yesterday, with Mauri van Stevenant being the most prominent name out there. He is on the shortlist to go to the Vuelta again, together with Remco Evenepoel, to defend the title. No fractures for him, but the Vuelta is 10 days out. Should be enough to recover, but he's out of the Tour of Denmark out of precaution. We also lost Sebastian Ruttersgaard. If you watched yesterday, that was the man who went on a bit of a flyer going into his hometown of Aalborg. And yeah, just at the moment he was caught. He went down on the deck and had to abandon. And also Aniel Kauski, the Polish rider for Human Powered Health, and Chet Hager. Chet Hager was a rider who crashed in the neutral yesterday and finished the stage with a broken wrist. So he's back home on his way to Girona to have that checked on. But since it's the 16th of August and he's already announced this is going to be his last year in the pro peloton on the road, he's going to shift his focus to gravel. Well, this might be an early ending to the road career of Chet Hager, the man who, of course, won that fantastic time trial in the Giro a couple of years ago. So those are the riders who didn't take the start. Sorry?
I think that will be the case. It's no easy way to recover from a fractured wrist. I've fractured my wrist in the past. I did continue, when I fractured my wrist, I did continue riding my bike. And actually carrying it at one point, but it's not an easy break. It will take some weeks, and you know, with the season going by quite quickly, and once you announce your retirement, I'm pretty sure that we don't want to see a pro like that ending in this way. But I'm pretty sure he may take a race in. It might be a show race or something like that. Maybe a race back in, close to where he lives, or, back in the States or something like that, that he'll get an ending to his career, because I think that's what all pros want. They want to close the door at some point, but close it in a nice way.
Well, the TV director is now showing the leaders.
Be quick.
Let me introduce. Yeah, be quick. Yes. We have 7 leaders, 6 riders from Denmark, 1 from the UK. That's Mark Stewart, the 27-year-old from the Bolton Equities Black Spoke team. And our Danish riders with 141, we have Jeppe Askov Poulsen. He is the man in the red jersey. We have Henrik Pedersen in the referee style and green jersey of Cola Quick. Tobias Argard Hansen of Leopard, that is the blue jersey, 167. Daniel Stampe, he is in last position here with 173. Frederik Jensen of the BHS Bornholm team, just ahead of him with 182. And then Julius Johansson in the colours of the Danish national team with his brightly coloured helmet, because normally he races for Intermarché Circus Vanti, who are not racing here, so he is racing for the national team. I think on this course he is kind of a dangerous rider. He comes off the track in Glasgow, but is a fantastic rider for these kind of courses. And the same goes for Mark Stewart, of course, a man who was active on the track as well on the Sir Chris Hoy Velodrome in Glasgow. So 7 riders. The instigator of this breakaway was Julius Johansson. He tried a few times, and in the end 5 of his countrymen followed him, and this man, Mark Stewart, in last position. 2:37. It hasn't really been more than this, but as you explained, Brian, we have Uno-X at the helm of the peloton, racing here with, most of their Danish squad, and of course our Norwegian race leader. Very important weeks for the Uno-X team. They have this race in Denmark. They have the Arctic race of Norway coming up, which you will also be able to see here on Eurosport, GCN Plus and Discovery Plus. And they have the Women's Tour of Scandinavia coming up with their women's team. So 3 very important home races for the team. So having that first strike already yesterday with Søren Werenskjold is, of course, a formidable start to that. Next sprint is coming up. That is a first category sprint for the King of the Hills, as it's called here. It's a 1.2 kilometer climb and 6.3% average. And it's important for that King of the Hills classification The two leaders there, oh, well, we have one leader with Østergaard Christensen, who's got 20 points, and Wessel Krul, who's got 18 points. But today we have 12, 18, 24 points on offer. So we might as well see a new King of the Mountains. The first one at 126 kilometers from the line was won by Henrik Pedersen. That's the man with 154 there in the green, black and white. He is moving to the front. But I was surprised, Brian, to see that this stage of 163 kilometers has 1,500 meters of elevation. 1,500.
Yeah, in this part of the world, that's quite a lot. But, you know, I'll say it, a lot of undulations in this part of the world. You know, it's up and down, and it all takes its toll in the end, of course. You know, we say anything above, you know, anything around 3,000 metres of elevation in an event is, you know, whether it go to kind of punchy riders, sprinters are normally kind of okay then, but anything above that, it's relatively kind of hard for the kind of pure sprinters. But talking about sprinting, we are going to see a sprint here. It's still early in this race, still plenty of points, as you've already mentioned, Jose, that, you know, there's a jersey to be won here. There's a few riders maybe not interested, but there's a few riders definitely interested in trying to gain the King of the Hills jersey as of the end of the stage.
And there we go with our first attack for the rider from the Bornholm team, followed by Pedersen and Askov. And these are the three riders who also went for the points, the first sprint that we had today. And it looks as if 182, he was second the first time around, and he is first now. So 12 points there go to Jensen, 8 points to Pedersen, and we didn't see the number 3. So that means that he has taken over the lead. Still not enough to take the jersey. That will be decided the last sprint that we have, and that is at 54 kilometers from the line. So 16 points now for this man, Jensen, and we have 14 points now for the man with 54, Henrik Pedersen. And I counted, Brian, we've got 6 riders with the surname Pedersen on our start list. Of course, the brothers Mes and Martin Pedersen at Lidl Trek. We have Casper Pedersen with Soudal Quickstep. Then we have Niklas Pedersen, Henrik Pedersen, 2 riders called Pedersen at Colo Quick. And there was one more, I can't find. Oh yeah, Rasmus Solbjerg Pedersen, the man who was in the Danish Team Pursuit. So quite a common name, and that's why we need to mention their first names as well.
Well, it's quite obvious. Pera had a lot of sons.
Yeah, exactly. Might have been the disciple Peter. Anyways. See 2 national champions here with Sikowski of the Q36.5, and on the left side of the peloton it's Banasek of the Human Powered Health team. As we explained yesterday, the team is closing down, Human Powered Health, the men's team, according to the news on several websites. The women's World Tour team will stay around, but the men's team is closing shop, which is of course very sad for the riders involved, including these guys. One of them has announced his retirement from road racing, Chet Haga, but that means that still quite a lot of riders are out to look for new teams. In the middle of the pack, we saw the man in the green jersey, and that is Mes Pedersen. He's actually 3rd in that ranking, but Werenskjold, of course, wears the leader's jersey. Jacobsen is the European champion, and if you're not a leader in a classification, so you got a jersey on loan, you're obliged to wear your world or European jersey. So that skips one, and then the green jersey, like I said, the same kind of green as we had in the Tour de France, goes to Mes Pedersen. So we have to look for the green for Mes Pedersen and the blue for Werenskjold, and possibly the European champion as well in the final. Yeah,
possibly. It might be. Let's see what the circuit is. if they ride it hard, it might be a little bit hard. But Jakobsen rode, I thought, quite well yesterday, having to close some gaps on his own. So looks as if he's got some form, and I wouldn't think that any of these finishes would be too difficult for him. Just to confirm that, when you read out the jerseys and the skipping of people, you're given a choice. If you're a world champion, obviously you have to wear the world champion's jersey, but you're given a choice. If you're a national champion, you're given that choice whether you can wear that jersey or not. Okay, the European champion has to ride his jersey, likewise the world champion. But if you're a national champion, of course, you've got that choice. It's happened in the past. Most national champs decide to wear their own jersey, or they'll honour the race and take the jersey. Sometimes it's nice to have a jersey on your back.
But I think riders mostly prefer to just wear their own kit that they're used to. That is quite often made to fit as well.
I disagree with you. I think most riders would rather wear a yellow jersey in the Tour de France.
Well, that's true. That's true. And that's a pretty prominent brand as well. So the people at Santini don't make really crap jerseys, do they? It's a really good brand there. But when it comes to kit, Brian, do these pro riders really give what kind of feedback would they give to the producers of cycling clothing? What they need improved? What is the kind of feedback that you would give to a clothing manufacturer?
Well, if you're a clothing brand, and it's a brand at the back here, 36.5, I think that evolved from ASOS, so it's kind of high-end clothing, and it's important. And I can remember when I first got involved with Cervelo Test Team, and people were saying, why do you have Test Team in a team name? It was purely what it said on the label. They tested out products. They were, the R&D, and since that, a lot of teams, I wouldn't say everybody, but I would say majority, because some riders are better at giving feedback than the others. So, but more importantly, you need as much feedback as possible, especially if you're moving to a new brand. I know that Ekoi sponsored the Israel Premier Tech team, and they spent, especially Darrell Impey, spent a lot of time over the last kind of few months of the season last year trying to help kind of develop the clothing for them and help them, and you need that. You need a kind of core group, but some teams have feedback forms for everybody. Some just use kind of core group, and it wasn't until Cervelo Test Team, because most product manufacturers use their own teams, and in fact, I know the former owners of Endura, and Jim McFarlane, and he used to go and test the stuff himself a lot of the time. But it's nice to have a team, because then you can get at the sharp end of pro bike riding, and the feedback from the riders is so crucial. Of course, way back, maybe 10, 12, 15 years ago, a lot of riders were a wee bit reluctant. I remember being involved with a team when disc brakes came in, and nobody really kind of wanted to use them because they were a bit heavier, and different things come in. It's not everybody wants to be a kind of test dummy, but the work with Endura, and especially with Alex Dowsett, they spent a lot of time in the wind tunnel. In fact, they made a body double of him, and they used that in the wind tunnel, because to do this type of testing, and the new TT world champion, Remco Evenepoel, he spent a lot of time in the build-up to the time trial worlds, looking at everything, minor details upon everything. So, that was a main focus for him, the TT in Scotland recently, and he duly obliged up against some really tough opposition in Filippo Ganna. But, a lot of this kind of road stuff, I don't think I've seen anybody nowadays use a jersey. Of course, that was the norm. Jersey and shorts. Now it's all speed suits, even out training. I was out this morning locally here in Spain, and a lot of the guys training are all just using speed suits. So it tends to be a lot of the kind of younger guys as well. So yeah, attention to detail, but Sky started it all, but everybody's caught up.
Yeah, there's a lot of very interesting things to say about clothing. I just translated the entire catalogue for a clothing brand that's opposite in the Koning races with Callas and the Great British cycling team, Great Britain cycling team as well. And there is just a lot of different fabrics and a lot of research going into all the different clothing that they have. The tower that we just had on our screens quite extensively is called the Erebanehøj, and it's the second highest point in Denmark at 171 meters. The highest point is actually just around the corner. It's called the Iving Skofhøj. That was the name of our climb. We didn't go all the way to the top. The climb was 161, but the highest point of Denmark is a whopping 173 meters. And that's right here.
And what's the lowest point? Is it sea level? Because I know in the Netherlands it's below sea level.
Yeah, yeah. Where I live, it's -6. So yes, I don't really think they have polders in Denmark. But they might. But most of the west of the Netherlands is below sea level. And if we didn't have our 10,000 kilometers of river and sea dikes, about 70% of the country would be under risk of flooding. So, yeah, a lot of the parts where I live is -2, -3. And I do 80, 90k rides with 20 meters of elevation. It's true. I think this morning I had 9, but it was a short ride.
So you have to take in the negative?
Yeah, definitely. So my bike computer is always a little bit shocked whenever I go to a hilly part of the world, and has to reassess. Anyways, yeah, the highest point of Denmark, that is where we are racing now. It's the middle of Jutland, where we are racing now. We're racing slightly to the south of where we were yesterday. That was all the way in the north of Jutland. And yeah, I haven't asked my geology friends what the thing is, but it might as well be due to the Ice Age and the polar glaciers coming down some 10, 12,000 years ago, kind of lifting up the countryside like it did very marginally in the Netherlands as well. Then we're talking 20 meters above sea level, apart from Limburg, of course, which you know from the Amstel Gold race. There isn't a lot of wind, you already said today, and we also have a lot of wooded areas, so I don't think the wind will really be a factor. We did have some rain, but at the moment it's nice and dry. But the pace in the peloton is anything but slow, but still our 7 leaders are increasing their advantage on the peloton. So almost 3 minutes at the moment.
Yeah, they know that Uno X are the only team riding on the front, and I think they're only riding 2 riders. And it's always the case of if you 2 riders against 7 in the front. And then when you're in the breakaway, you try and kind of push out what advantage you're going to get. And I would think that 3 minutes would be the kind of maximum, because Uno X want to keep it there. Not all the teams behind will want this to go all the way to the finish. So, Uno X are playing with the view to, because if they kept it a minute and a half and made a stronger effort, then other teams would have just let them do it. But by holding it here about 3 minutes, they've already won a stage. They've got the leader. Okay, the onus is to try and kind of keep that. But you got to remember that they want to try entice other teams to try and kind of help out. I'm talking about Lido Trek and Soudal Quickstep.
Back in the Tour of Denmark, still with, almost a team time trial there with the riders of Uno X all the way at the front with their leader in the blue jersey. Of course, this race sponsored by PostNord, which is National Post Services. We also have a green jersey, Skoda green. That is the points jersey. We have a white with blue polka dots, which is the King of the Hills, and of course a white jersey for the best young rider. Looking at Lasse Norman Let Hansen, he's leading the peloton at the moment, fresh of a gold medal in the Danish team pursuit. immediately catapulting themselves to top favourite status next year on the boards in Saint-Quentin en Yvelines in, well, not in Paris, but slightly to the west of Paris. We've got all 7 riders of Uno-X there with, like I said, at the front, Lasse Normann Let. We have Louis Bendixen, Alfred Krené, William Bloemen-Levy, who is, well, not far, who lives not far from here, actually. Anton Charmik, we have Niklas Larsen, and of course our leader, Søren Varenskjold. That is the team here of Uno-X, this very recognizable jersey, followed by this young man, I assume it's a boy, on a quad. Is he keeping up with the peloton? Oh, yeah. Little overview of our breakaway. Mark Stewart, the only non-Danish rider at the front. The others all from Denmark. Youngest rider in our breakaway is the 18-year-old who was vying for the points on the previous climb. He's only 18 years of age, Hendrik Pedersen. Now in third position. The oldest man in our breakaway is Mark Stewart at 27.
Yeah, Mark is, probably better known from his performances on the track. Recent medal at the World Championships in his home in Scotland. Scottish rider Mark Stewart. But I think, we're talking about it yesterday, Jose, about, riders. He's riding at second division. Happy. You got, a good team there. But I think, Mark Stewart, I think he really deserves a shot at kind of World Tour if he had that opportunity. I think, what he's doing in the track, but then he's riding kind of second division. We've seen Lasse Normann Hansen there, gold medalist in the team pursuit, riding for a World Tour team, Uno-X. I think, 27.
They're not World Tour.
No, they're not. No, they plan to be. They plan to be World Tour. Yeah, absolutely. And they're getting the
women
big
are,
invites.
the men are not yet.
But just to give Mark Stewart that bigger kind of opportunity at riding at the kind of World Tour level, I think is worth having a look at it. I know that EF Education Easy Post gave James Shaw that kind of opportunity. So you're looking at a team to give Mark Stewart. You don't do what he does on the track just by choice, and some of his road performances as well earlier on this year were winning stage races, and in some of the races in Asia was he's a really handy bike rider. So but that's what stops people 27 years old when they can get maybe kind of younger riders. So let's hope he gets that kind of shot at maybe riding some of the kind of big races, because I do believe he's got the engine to deliver.
I wonder, Brian, how are teams looking at riders this pre-Olympic year, especially now with the World Championships in the middle of the road cycling season, and also the Nations Cup will be from next season on during the road season. How do team managers look at riders with track ambitions for Paris and signing them on? Because it means that you cannot use a rider for a prolonged period of time.
No, you can, but I think that's stopped now. I think, race days kind of capped about 80 for most bike riders. And, we talked about it the other day, Jose, about keeping the mind of the riders. And I mean keeping them happy in a team. We all know that, certain, team owners have been quite vocal about, no, I don't want you doing this discipline or track. It's too dangerous. I'm paying you to ride on the road. But you've got to remember that even if they are doing it on another discipline, that they are getting that publicity. I think it's testament to what Tom Pidcock is doing. He's doing a lot of different disciplines, and it's the same with Mathieu van der Poel, doing a lot of different kind of disciplines. And I think if it wasn't doing these disciplines, and I'm not too sure if I remember Tom Pidcock kind of talking out. If he didn't do it, then he would maybe get a little bit bored about doing that kind of one discipline. So he likes to do multiple disciplines and keep his hand in it, doing it because it kind of pushes him. Of course, he comes back and focuses on what he has to do. I can remember Patrick Lefevre maybe not happy with Mark Cavendish doing kind of track racing, but Mark loved track racing. He loved it. So it's getting that balance right. Of course, you want your rider riding your own kind of sponsored kit and things like that, but if he wins a medal or he becomes world champion on his track or any other discipline, I'm pretty sure that's good PR for your sponsor.
Well, Lefevre always says that when it comes to Champions jersey, there's fewer options for sponsors on the jersey, and we do know that teams like UAE Emirates basically reserve 2 square centimeters for flags when riders are national champions. So not everybody is Groupama FDG, so to say.
No, I think what they're doing is perfect, because I don't think we talk about it. I don't think it's always about what you see visibly on the screen. If you're the French champion, you stand out. You talk about them. You mention the team name. You mention the sponsors. So, and I think a lot of people are drawn to that. So, I think some teams get it wrong, and the other thing is they're going against federations, because the federations have to sign off these national champs jersey, and it has to resemble what you get on the day. And certain teams that don't do that just don't take that feedback. I know this for a fact because in MTN Quebec we had Edvard Boasson Hagen, and we put we thought it was quite a nice jersey. We put the kind of stripes round the middle of the jersey. Then the federation got in contact and said that they had not signed this off, and that's when I came across that it has to be signed off by the national federations, and I don't think many do it. And they told us that it didn't resemble the jersey that they give out on the day, so we changed it for them, and we were happy to oblige. We did the whole kind of Norwegian flag on it, and it looked super cool. But just like the Danish national champion, it looks nice. So I think there's a few teams just ignored the request from some of the federations.
We're almost 100 kilometers into today's stage, and that means that we have the so-called Sparkassen 100-kilometer sprint. It's not a 100-kilometer long sprint, but it comes at the 100-kilometer point. There's 150 euros for the one crossing that line first here in Oostburg. And it looks like riders are interested. It also means a trip to the podium. Yesterday it was Mes Østergaard Christensen getting that, and it looks like his teammate Tobias Agard Hansen is interested in that one today, although there is some competition from Daniel Stampe with 173 and our youngest man of the day, Henrik Pedersen. So many people have showed up here. I don't see a line just yet. It's a really long sprint for 150 euros. But the line must have been there somewhere, because they're slowing down. I didn't see any line, but looked like Daniel Stampe, the 27-year-old of the Zürich Kalras team, took those points. Or are we still continuing? No, we're still continuing with the sprint, apparently. I didn't see a line. But no, I must say the finish line yesterday was ridiculously small as well.
Yeah, I saw potential lines, but there was no confirmation there. And by the looks of things, these guys are undecided as well. So it's a bit of a strange one. I know it comes after roughly 100 kilometres, but yeah, these guys have been going at it for a little bit now, and I think we're almost coming up to it now, or not, it's just a sign saying we're going right. So I think they're a bit undecided, just like we are.
Well, it's going to be a surprise which of the two riders actually takes it. Henrik Pedersen, he will be 19 in December. He's a very promising young man. He signed with the Uno-X development team for the 24 and 25 seasons, and then has already signed a 2-year contract with the Uno-X Pro team for the 26 and 27 team. If you look at his results as a junior, there were some good results in the Obertimister, which is a little bit of a hilly stage race to the east of Liège in Belgium. And there were good results as well in the Grand Prix Rubiland, which is also a junior race with quite a lot of elevation. And there was a win last year. Last year, in his last junior year, he was the national champion on the road. He was winner of a stage in the Tour de Pays du Vaud. That's another junior race with quite a lot of elevation, but also in the Spi Internationale Junioren Driedaagse, which is in Zeeland, in not Danish Zeeland, but Dutch Zeeland, and that is as flat as a pancake. So the boy can both climb and sprint, and is one of the most promising riders apparently. Otherwise, Uno-X would not have given him a 4-year contract.
Definitely, we talked about it yesterday about teams looking at investment more than anything else, because these guys probably come cheaper than maybe certain other riders. Why not invest? Take that chance. If you can bring them on board and see how they get on. I do like. I was talking to Matt White at Jayco Alula. They, of course, everybody knows that there's a minimum salary, but there's no point giving riders minimum salary if they've got to live in another part of the world and kind of look after themselves. So I think, looking at it, they give, I believe, and it might have changed or something, they give about 80,000 euros to across the board, just to make sure that a lot of the riders maybe on smaller salaries or a minimum aren't kind of struggling, that they can settle into Europe a little bit better.
Back to our breakaway, 62.6 kilometers, still around the 3-minute mark. We'll have the names on our screen again, and each and every one cruising along this road. In about 10 kilometers from where we are right now, we move towards the north. We'll have a sprint coming up in about 10 kilometers, a King of the Hills sprint that is. And that is going to be the Smedebakken. Yesterday I said that Bakken was a road, but it's actually a climb. And a V-E-J is a road. So a Bakken V is actually a climbing road. So we learned that now. And after that 54-kilometer from the finish line point, the road goes back towards the north. And that means that we'll have a headwind going back to Silkeborg. We'll have an intermediate sprint still at 24.5 kilometers. And that's it. This is a man racing for a Polish team, HRE Mazowsze Sierżgie Polski. There's 6 Polish riders there, including 2 brothers, the Buczynski brothers and the Banasek brothers, and 1 Danish rider. And that might be the reason that they're racing this race for a continental team from Poland. A 2-point pro race is, of course, a big invitation. They won't be able to race the Tour of Poland, since that is a World Tour race. So 2-point pro or 1-point pro series is the highest that they can get an invitation to. And this will be one of the biggest stage races on their calendar. Televised as well. It's the first time I have the team in a race that I cover.
Yeah, I've covered them a few times now, and in the past, Poland have always produced some really kind of strong bike riders, and even from my developing days, riding milk races and things like that, and battling with them, and they always came to Britain and rode that kind of milk race and come away with something, whether it was Sprint's jersey, and they were, even before that time when my dad was around, they used to come to to certain amateur races and do rather well. So in the past, they've always produced some good riders, and any time that it's a Polish team in a race like this, they always are very kind of competitive. But yeah, they've got a few top riders in the pro peloton at the moment. Stage winner, of course, in the Tour with Kwiatkowski.
I was absolutely shocked, Brian, to see that Poland had one spot at the World Championships. When Kwiatkowski became world champion, they were with 8 or 9 riders in Spain, in Ponferrada, and there was one left on the UCI ranking.
That surprised me, but it rang the bell that maybe they're going through a tough time.
So about the Polish, they have a few riders that we sometimes see in the top 10. They have Kwiatkowski, but only one rider. I think even a country like Uzbekistan, well, we do know how they qualified. They just made up some races and qualified and got UCI points. But one rider for a country like Poland, I found that shocking. I had no idea they had fallen down so far on the UCI country listing.
Yeah,
right.
Obviously, and Britain were down there before as well, and they've come back, and even in the women's Polish team, it was what stood out for me at the Worlds was Miła Ndomo not being allowed to ride because of that respiratory problem she had, because I really do think that she maybe have made a difference in Glasgow, because I think that circuit would have kind of suited her, but it wasn't to be.
Of course, they still have Agnieszka Skalniak-Zoszka, who had a good race there, also a Canyon SRAM rider. And some very promising young women as well with the Wlodarczyk sisters. Back to the racing here. 60k to go, so less than 1.5 hours of racing. We only enter the Finnish circuit at 16.5 kilometers. It's only a very short circuit, as now Joseph Czerny is getting to the front of the peloton, helping out to reduce the gap to our 7 leaders. Our Finnish circuit is only 5.4 kilometers. We've seen in the past that Remco Evenepoel just lapped the entire peloton on one of these short circuits. So there is a provision in the regulations for this race that you just have to wait at the side of the road so that the main group can go past. But you do have to complete the entire distance of the stage in order to be able to continue tomorrow. But 5 kilometers for a circuit is actually rather short. It should be about 8 minutes, something like that.
Yeah, depends how fast they race round. Maybe a little bit less than that. Okay for a maybe a hilly race, or maybe a longer stage race where we do get double figure gaps. We know, of course, covering like the Tour de France, that's sometimes they get a lot more than that. So when you have a finishing circuit like we've got here, you have to think of that from back to front, to stop. And quite often we see that in some circuits, if it's a little bit smaller than that, some of the drop riders will get stopped in the entrance to the circuit. But I don't think that'll be the case today. I think it will be the bunch that will roll in. I think the gap will come down again, because you don't want to take any chances coming onto the circuit. So I think this is why Soudal, Quick-Step are starting to ride to bring the gap down before we start entering the circuit.
Stage 2, we are approaching Silkeborg. We will soon move towards the north, and that means that we will have a headwind, so pace will go down a little bit. We still have our 7 leaders, including Scotsman Mark Stewart, and 6 riders from Denmark, the most famous one being Julius Johansson. We still have 1 climb to go, and if we look at the virtual ranking in the King of the Hills, as it's called here in Denmark, because the highest point of the country we just passed is 173 meters. We have Pedersen with 14 points and Jensen with 16 points. So that is going to be a battle for the final. We do have one man of the Leopard team in that jersey. He's got 20. So, yeah, basically Pedersen has to take the 6 points and then he has the jersey. No, Jensen has to take the 6 points and then he has the jersey. Beautiful helicopter view here of our next town. Our sprint is coming up for the final King of the Hills points. Scandinavia becoming ever more popular for tourism these days due to the fact that climate change causes really high temperatures in the south of Europe, not only Spain and the Mediterranean, but also France. I think Lyon is about 37 degrees today. So more and more people are looking for Scandinavia. Of course, last week with Storm Hans, it was yeah, really difficult situation in both Sweden and Norway with flooding, biggest flooding that Norway had seen in I think over 100 years. Denmark was relatively unscathed. It was mostly Sweden and Norway involved with Storm Hans. Great name for a storm, but absolutely terrible results with casualties as well, and a lot of damage in these countries. Have you ever been on holiday in Scandinavia, Brian, or just racing?
I've never holidayed in Scandinavia. I've been in different parts. I've been Sweden, Norway, Denmark. Haven't been to Finland yet, but yeah, I think, you know, there's a few kind of bucket list things I want to do. I'd love to do something.
Yesterday we established that you're only
fjords.
39, so still got plenty of time.
I do have plenty of time. I do.
Looked like our race leader Søren Werenskjold went for a little break, a little sanitary stop, and was helped. No, not but with his sanitary stop, but with coming back to the peloton by Louis Bendixen. I remember that, I don't know which rider it was in Milan-San Remo, but there was one rider who was supposed to stay with Mathieu van der Poel from start to finish, making sure that everything went smoothly, that all the sanitary breaks went smoothly. I think it was, no, it was not Jonas Ricard because he was not back yet. But yeah, they had one rider attributed to Mathieu van der Poel only to make sure that he was okay. Here we are with our final climb, Smedebakken, 1,500 meters of elevation today. All these little hills, they really add up. And our breakaway is still at 2.5 minutes. But have to look out for the rider in the Colo Quick jersey. That is the green with the referee stripes. And we'll have to look out for the rider in the blue of BHS Baton Bornholm. He's currently leading the group with the white helmet, and that is Frederik Jensen. These two riders are currently fighting for that jersey. This climb is, well, 600 meters long. It's 8.7% average, but the pain is short. And with every climb, it just depends on how fast you ride it.
I've been in many situations like this, and you know, you're looking for warnings, and we get a 1 kilometer to go. And when I was brought up with racing, and we got kind of hill preems and sprint preems, there was always a kind of green flag with a white border signifying 200 meters to go. We don't have that here, so it's a lot of these riders won't know, and they'll kind of try and take a guess, and a lot of them will hope that it's just not just round the corner.
Here we go. They are indeed sprinting for the points. There is the flag. And it looks like the more... Ooh, that was a gearing thing there for the man of Colo Quick. And that means that with 182, Frederik Jensen, the 24-year-old Danish rider, is our new king of the mountains. With a total of 22 points. Yeah, what did we hear? We heard it both, but was it like his gear skipping or something like that?
I think it's just under pressure. I think he realised he jumped in a smaller gear. And we see it a lot of the time that when you're changing under pressure, you hear that. And I think he just changed. He changed into a slightly bigger gear, and that caused him a bit of problem. He realised he was kind of under geared. It was okay when he did that acceleration, but to keep that momentum going, he was just a bit under geared and tried to change when it's under pressure. And we see this quite often. A lot of talk about losing your chain and things like that. It's these things do happen when that chain, because it's getting thinner and thinner. From way back in the day, these thin chains, there's a lot of torque in it, and when you change under pressure, sometimes the chain just skips or drops.
Of the breakaway, we have one rider of a team called Restaurant Suri Kalras, with, among others, Magnus Bak-Klaris, who has been doing really well in the national races recently here in Denmark, the Randers Cycling Week. But I noticed, Brian, that they're all racing the Madones of Trek Segafredo, the 2022 models. Yesterday we had Christian Ekholm in the breakaway. He is the brother of Jakob Ekholm, who raced last year for Trek Segafredo. So I thought, well, okay, maybe he got a hand-me-down, the rider bought a bike off the team. But today I saw that Daniel Stamper of our breakaway also races the 2022 colour scheme Madone. So I wonder if there's a little bit of a cooperation between these two teams. There are, of course, quite a few Danish riders on now called Lidl Trek.
There must be, I think, by looking at it as well, and we see it as well, that, certain pro teams, help out some of the other kind of developing teams. I was talking to the Cycling Academy in Scotland, and, he said it's quite evident when you go to a lot of these kind of junior or kind of small races in Europe, and then you see them, every rider's got kind of Total Energies bottles, or AG2R bottles and things like that. So there is a bit of kind of collusion and relationships with certain teams.
Looks like we do have a little bit of wind going on here. We go to the north. The wind is a northeasterly wind. Well, mostly easterly at this point. So that is a crosswind, a head crosswind as it is right now. So we do see in the formation of our 7 leaders, there is a little bit of wind to take into account.
Yeah, definitely. For me, when I looked at it in the app that I use, it's a westerly wind, so coming from the left-hand side of the riders as they start heading towards the the finishing circuits.
Yeah, my app is also westerly wind, but I looked at it wrong. You're right, we're looking at the same app, but I had my west and east completely confused. Sorry about that. I can't find directions anywhere. Completely rely on Google and my Wahoo bike computer to get anywhere. always amazes my husband that I can't find my way anywhere in the world. Well, he just goes on a conference to Seoul in South Korea and explains to the taxi driver how to get to the hotel. And I'm the kind of person walking out of a shop and just going the exact same direction I came from. And then after 20, 30 minutes, like, oh, I already passed this shop before. And then I turn around. So everybody's got something that they can't do. Well, apart from you, maybe. But the development and the invention of the GPS bike computer meant that I could actually explore my world, Brian.
But why don't you take it shopping as well?
I do most of my online shopping nowadays. Most of the shopping I did in the recent 4 weeks was the pet store. Here we have our Polish champion at the back of the bunch, Alan Banasek, and more firepower at the front, because with 50k to go, we still have our 7 leaders with about 3 minutes to go, 3 minutes ahead of the chasers. And that means that since we went live, which was about an hour ago, an hour ago, 42 kilometers ago, the gap hasn't changed one bit, despite the work of Lasse Norman Lett, despite the work now of Joseph Czerny. And that means that they have asked Jacopo Mosca to also join the fun at the front to make sure that the gap is finally coming down.
I think Uno X and the Red have done a good job here. They've kind of held the gap about 3 minutes, and you know, when you do that, it entices other teams to come up. And Soudal Quickstep have duly obliged, and just a moment ago, Lido Trek have done exactly the same thing. Now, at the start of the year, Uno X started with predominantly kind of yellow kit. They changed this to the red kit for the Tour de France, and they've decided to keep it. Yeah,
it's nice. It's a little bit Spanish national champion, but it's everybody can recognise it.
But that's what you want, isn't it? And you can see it.
No more blue.
No, but I think the yellow one you could see as well, but it does kind of clash sometimes with, leaders' jerseys and things like that. And, because most people use it for the Tour de France and then switch back again. But they've decided to keep it.
I like it. I like the other one as well. For us as commentators, it's always very nice to have very recognizable kit that you can actually see from the helicopter. With all the bluish teams that we have here, there's a lot of blue in this peloton. I really applaud riders, teams like Uno X, but also the Green Project Bardiani, who, well, wear green, duh. It's always very nice to have jerseys like that. But one rider in this peloton racing to his hometown, and that is the man with number 71, Sebastian Kolse-Changisi, a very up-and-coming young Danish rider, born in Silkeborg, so he is our home rider, although we are not that far away from Aarhus, which is, let me say this correctly, to the east of where we are, and heading to the west of where we are racing at the moment. So quite a few big cities on the horizon here on Jutland. And Jutland is the part of Denmark that's actually attached to Germany. So you don't have to take any bridges. You can just drive to Germany and then end up in the lovely town of Flensburg. Here we go with Jacopo Mosca at the front. We have Joseph Czerny, and now also some involvement from the EF Education team. They're here with Magnus Kort, who is a record winner of stages, 4 in this peloton, in this active peloton. There's Matti Breschel, who won many, many more. I wonder if he's behind the wheel for the EF Education Easy Post. Normally we get a start list where we also have the DSs, but I don't have that one today. Here we are with Frederik Mouf there with 1:55. And Niklas Pedersen, who was in the breakaway yesterday. One of our 6 Pedersens. There's also quite a few Jensens, and that's why Matthias Skelmoser always goes by Skelmoser, despite the fact that quite often it says Jensen on the results sheet. But since, well, 10% of Denmark is actually called Jensen, it's easier to go with Skelmoser. We're under 50k to go. We still have 30 kilometers before we are on our local circuit in Silkeborg. And that local circuit has a pretty decent climb in it. On our profile, Brian, it looks a lot steeper than it quite possibly is. But yesterday we saw that the local circuits were technical, and also that the roads were pretty narrow. So you have to stay at the front each of these 3 laps.
Yeah, add to the difficulty yesterday, you had some wet roads as well. It dried towards the end, and yeah, I think we'll see the same thing. Everybody will want to be onto the circuit, a lot shorter circuit than yesterday. But with 4 teams now interested in riding this breakaway down, it's coming down to 30 now. But yeah, it's looking at the profile. You can see that there's kind of 3 small sharp kind of climbs on this circuit at the end, which they do 3 times, so they'll come in quick succession. I hope, and I think we will see a good race around these circuits like we did yesterday, and potentially a small group coming to the finish. I think that's what EF Education EasyPost and the Pink are looking for. Potentially the other teams looking for some sort of sprint. Maybe Mads Pedersen, he was beaten yesterday by Jakobsen, but then again he'd had a tough ride to get back to the front group. So and with it being a kind of an uphill sprint, I think this really does suit Mads Pedersen today. But let's see what the other teams have got up their sleeves. First and foremost for Uno X, they want to try and keep a hold of that jersey. They'll be hoping that the likes of Mads Pedersen doesn't win and takes the kind of 10-second bonus, and Warren Cole doesn't take any bonuses, because I think the bonuses will be important come the end. But I think all in all it will be a very active finish to today's stage.
We also have EF Education EasyPost at the front right now. I think this is Tom Scully helping out. So we did see a little bit of an attack yesterday by Michael Valgren. I do think the circuit suits him, but it's hard to ascertain where his form is at the moment, of course, after that long period of recovery. But there were some good signs in the Tour de l'Ain, first few days of August. That was in France. Quite a hilly terrain. So fingers crossed we will see Michael Valgren at the front, or Magnus Kort as a second option. Got some wildlife there on the side of the road, and some nature breaks on a bike as well. We're racing towards the north. Our wind is a north-northwesterly wind today. Looking at the best young rider here. He was in a breakaway yesterday. Filippo Ridolfo of the Novo Nordisk team picked up some bonus seconds, and that meant that he is now 4th in the general classification. Best young rider after Werenskjold, Jakobsen and Pedersen. So he gets to wear the white jersey. We have the King of the Mountains jersey. That's white with blue dots on the shoulders of Nes Christensen, Østergaard. The points jersey, a green one for Nes Pedersen, and then of course the blue leaders jersey for Werenskjold. And we're back in our breakaway where everybody seems to be working nicely together.
Yeah, just looking at the setup. Hi, Mark. Just looking at the setup with the bars and levers situation, and I would say pretty much I think 6 out of the 7 have got that, you know, the bars, the kind of narrower bars that, you know, a bit wider towards the bottom, like we're seeing here. The levers kind of tilted in. You just look at them and say, oh, that's 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe not, definitely 5, 6. And it's to get this position here. This position before you couldn't do, just resting your your arm on the bars, you know, the kind of puppy paws, to coin a phrase from Carlton Kirby. You couldn't do that anymore. So what they've decided to do is have kind of narrower bars, just like this rider here at the front. Narrower bars, point the levers in, and then you can rest your arms and kind of just still hold on to the levers. So a bit like the national jersey rider right at the front there, you know, all of them. So, you know, I'm not saying it's for everybody. Many riders are deciding to go that way. Some aren't, still keeping, you know, kind of traditional. But many times we see riders in the breakaway, it's all about, you know, aerodynamics and, you know, levers pointing in. And I think almost all of the riders in the breakaway have got that setup. So no real surprise that, you know, they've got themselves in the breakaway, because they know that throughout their kind of career, getting themselves in that breakaway is important. And you see a lot of riders, like Taco van der Hoorn, he's made his career from breakaway and he sets his bike up purely on that way. Van Schip was another rider, Dutch rider. He did exactly the same thing. So a lot of riders now kind of copying these ideas. If they get themselves in the breakaway, that's the kind of setup they would like.
The problem with it is that kids copy it, and I know the regulations over here in the Netherlands are that up until the age of 16, so the under 17s, all the junior categories, the young categories, they're not allowed to do that. You can't rest with your forearms on the handlebars, because if somebody in front of you has to brake, you just, as a kid, don't have the reaction to stop in time. So it's actually forbidden in youth racing, from junior racing on, so the 17 and 18-year-olds, although there's also 16-year-olds in the junior category, as we know, because the world champion is, of course, a 16-year-old boy. It's allowed, but the problem with these kind of things is that young kids always try to copy it, and they don't have the skills that these pros have. And you have to be a little bit more careful with that. You also see Novo Nordisk move to the front. They're here with a very international team, actually. Novo Nordisk is a Danish pharmaceutical company. So they are, they're based in Denmark, amongst other countries, quite a big company. But they are also the sponsors of one of the classifications. So they are invited to this team as well. They got riders from New Zealand, they got riders from Australia, Belgium, Italy, Hungary, Czech Republic, and Italy. I already mentioned Italy.
Yeah, I'm just watching here that Czerny was on the left-hand side. The TV motorbike came and he just got straight into that slipstream, and he's trying to kind of track the bike. You know, I know that you know, there is kind of a lot of talk, because it does change the outcome of races. Even the run into the stage winner yesterday, the TV motorbike, no fault of his own, did kind of help a little bit. I think he was still a 1, but you know, you see race decided by, you know, the motorbikes at the front. Of course, we want the pictures, but a lot of the time, you know, the motorbikes at the front, TV bikes, kind of, you know, the riders will use 100% the advantage of that, and we see it pretty much in every race.
I always love the passion of the Danish fans. We've seen that last year, the first 3 stages of the Tour de France. It was absolutely fantastic. Magnus Kort, of course, helping a great deal towards the enthusiasm out on the road with his polka dot jersey quest. But the Danish people are always very passionate about their cycling, as are, of course, the Norwegians. Quite a lot of cycling going on at the moment. We just finished the Vuelta a Burgos, where they had a team time trial, of course, as a final preparation for the first stage of the Vuelta that starts in 10 days. I won't spoil who won. You can watch that on our digital channels. We also have the Tour de Limousin on. We have Denmark on from tomorrow. We have the Arctic Race of Norway as well. And at the moment, we also still have the Tour of Portugal. That's not on our channels. But yesterday we saw a fantastic win by much-loved veteran rider Luis Angel Mate. He's been around for a long time, the Spaniard from Andalusia, and he won himself a stage in the Tour of Portugal. I find it like, well, for 2 weeks we didn't have any racing, Brian, of course, due to the Super Worlds, and now we got 5 stage races in 1 week, and a big classic on Sunday as well in Hamburg.
Yeah, the logistics of a team, you cannot support all races. You have to pick and choose, and it does give some of the smaller teams that kind of opportunity. But wasn't that Luis Angel Mate? His last win about 12 years ago, something
Very
like that.
long time ago, yeah.
So he's won again. If you don't succeed, keep on trying. You might have to wait 12 years.
It was 12 years, almost.
Was it 12?
Yeah. The Route du Sud, a race that doesn't even exist anymore. And it was only his 3rd win. Luis Angel Mate, El Lynx, the Lynx from Andalusia, has been around forever. And now, after 12 years, he got his 3rd professional win. So you can imagine that there was great joy in the online community that he managed to do so. And he did it with a very late solo. So great work there by a very kind guy in the peloton. Yesterday we also had the first stage in the Tour de Limousin Périgord Nouvelle-Aquitaine, so that is in the south of France, west of France, and there was a fantastic win by one of the up-and-coming young French stars, Romain Grégoire, with a pretty impressive solo win. That was for the man of Groupama FDJ, and you can watch the second stage online as well, and I think it's Pippa and Hannah on commentary for that one. Yes, it is. So if you have some time tonight or tomorrow morning, there's a lot of racing coming on. Burgos just finished with Rob Hatch and Matt Stevens. Tomorrow we start with the Arctic Race of Norway with Jess Cox and Ian Field. Brian and I will be with you until Saturday. So yeah, if you missed some racing the past 2 weeks, can't imagine, because we had everything on, including artistic cycling. But we have so much racing for you to enjoy the upcoming days here on Eurosport, but also our digital channels, GCN Plus and Discovery Plus. First time that the gap drops below the 2-minute mark, and now a new team has reported to the front, and that is Alpecin de Koning. They're here with Søren Kragh Andersen, Ramon Sinkeldam, Nicola Conchi, Oscar Riesebeek, Jensen Plowright, Christian Sbaraglie and Fabio van der Bosch. Uno-X will be happy to get a little bit of help. I found Fabio Jacobsen yesterday pretty impressive for his first race back since abandoning the Tour de France. He had absolutely no problem following the moves at all.
I agree. He looked good. He was actually shutting some of the gaps. Top of the last climb, the gap did open, and he was one of the riders that closed it down. But there is a big change here from Alpecin de Koning. They did something a bit similar yesterday when coming onto the circuit, taking it from the front. But this is a case of they don't have that kind of out-and-out fast finisher. They don't want the kind of sprinters teams just to ride in here easy. Søren Kragh, quality rider, and a rider that can definitely win. He kind of looked at it yesterday, just wasn't quite hard enough. So I think this is a case of I tell you what, guys, you know, we're going to play to our strengths, and the strengths to Alpecin Deceuninck, because to make it this a really hard run in towards the circuit, you know, really hard on the circuit, you know, you see it all kind of stretched out in one line. So, you know, they've decided not to sit back. You know, I love it when a team does this. Just play to your strengths. They could have sat back and allowed, you know, the four teams that were slowly but surely starting to bring things back. I think a couple of the teammates from Alpecin Deceuninck forgot the memo and are just trying to kind of move up now. Normally when you do this as a team, everybody goes to the front and you do this. But, you know, it's good to see that, you know, they use the kind of rolling roads now to make it difficult to put the pressure on the peloton, because this is their best way of trying to win the stage today.
I agree 100%. They don't have anybody for a bunch sprint right here, so they have to really race these final laps on the circuit in Silkeborg. Look at the shape of that peloton.
Yeah, even coming onto the circuit, it's 16.5, but Søren Kragh potentially, you know, this is a loose term, you know, local rider. He's from Denmark, but he's not a kind of local rider, if you say what I mean. I don't know every inch of Scotland, but I think he may have done his bit of his homework. It's rolling roads. There might be kind of twists and turns, and they want to use his team to his advantage.
Oscar Riesebeek, Fabio van der Bossen at the front of the peloton. We see Sbaraglia there, the Italian rider as well. And now the gap is coming down. We have another Skoda bonus sprint coming up in 10 kilometers from now. We already had one at 105. That was won by Julius Johansson, the man who is the best ranked rider in that breakaway of 7. So he's now only 13 seconds behind our race leader, Søren Werenskjold.
You got to remember.
Yep.
You've got to remember also that Søren Kragh is a good. He can time trial very well as well. He might not be getting up in bonuses. It might be a case of Alpecin Deceuninck have decided, well, the gap was coming down. This bonus sprint's 24.5 kilometres time. So in about 10 kilometres time, we're going to have this bonus sprint, but it's up a hill. You know, and I think potentially Søren Kragh is going to suit him better than maybe some of the others. So I think maybe Deceuninck Quickstep are thinking the long game here, not just, you know, potentially the stage, but also this bonus sprint coming up, because I think every second is going to count in this one.
Yeah, there's a really big group at the 16-second mark. That is 35 riders. So the classification at the moment is led by Søren Werenskjold. He's got 10 seconds on... Hey, there's a T-Rex. He's got 10 seconds on Jakobsen, 12 on Pedersen, 14 on Ridolfo, the man who was in the break yesterday, 16 on Tobias Lund Andersen, and then 40 other riders at 16 seconds. In 6th place in the GC, we have Vito Braat, the Belgian who sprinted 5th. Søren Kragh Andersen is currently 7th. Sebastian Kolsitsankisi, who's racing back home. Sebastian Nielsen and Andreas Stockbro. That is the top 10 in the general classification. So the difference is quite small. We still have 10, 6 and 3 seconds, 10, 6 and 2 seconds on the finish line. And a 3, 2 and 1 coming up at the sprint, but the peloton will be too late for that.
There's a real strong effort here from Søren Kragh. He's not kind of hanging around. He got his team up towards the front to really put the pressure on. He wants to split this peloton up even before we get onto the circuit.
See the flag, it's a headwind, cross headwind for the riders at the moment. And the pace is really, really high in the peloton. The shape says it all. Everybody has to fight to keep the wheel in front of him. And we have some gaps as well there, Brian. Some riders have to be really attentive not to lose time right now.
Yeah, and sometimes in races like this you can become a little bit lethargic, kind of sitting too far back, not keeping concentration, thinking that oh, the teams are riding at the front, you know, it's all going to come back, I'll move up before we get onto the circuit. But no, you have to be attentive the whole time in these races, because you never know when a team's going to come up and kind of push on. So, you know, Alpecin Deceuninck have decided to do that, and okay, gaps starting to appear, but I think it's a case of just making it hard. Just don't kind of sit back and allow the sprinters to have their day. They want to kind of mix things up, you know, whittle down this peloton a little bit more and make it a hard run-in.
And that's exactly what they're doing right now. Gap is below the minute mark with Christian Sbaraglia. We just saw Alfred Grenet drop from the peloton, the youngster of the development team of Uno-X, doing a lot of work at the front of the bunch early on. But now the race is on, 32.5 kilometers to go. A little bit of a direction change, so that means that quite possibly some riders do manage to come back, but judging from the size of this group, Brian, I think we lost some riders already.
Yeah, we did. I was watching the commissar behind, just kind of waving his hands and things like that. I think, you know, he's trying to create a barrage of some kind just at the back, some of the riders being dropped, but it's settled down a little bit now. I don't think this is the last we've seen of Alpecin Deceuninck.
Very successful World Championships, of course, for them, with Sam Gaze, with Mathieu van der Poel, quite possibly forgetting riders. But those were the two world champions that they had.
Looks like we've lost the pictures of the race. Just getting some vistas what we saw earlier on, so just bear with us.
And we're back, where we really have a fight here with Axel de Lie, with number 67 of the Lotto Destiny team. His brother, usually successful, winning races on Sunday, winning races yesterday. And I read a stat that he is now, at his age, I think he's only 21, Arnaud de Lie, won as many races as Remco Evenepoel. At that age, must say that the wins of Remco Evenepoel were of a slightly higher level. Arnaud de Lie, there's a lot of 1.1, 1. Pro, 2.1, 2. Pro races, but I can't remember Arnaud de Lie winning in the World Tour just yet, but I might be wrong. But it's coming, especially when Lotto Destiny are taking him to the Tour de France instead of Caleb Ewan. That fight is still on. Jason Bucker, the manager of Caleb Ewan, says that he will full well fulfill his contract for 2024, but it's quite clear that the atmosphere between the management and Caleb Ewan is not as happy as it was at the start of the season, after what was said by Stéphane Hulot during the Tour de France. One minute, 30 kilometers to go. We have a bonus sprint coming up in 6 kilometers from this point. Means that the peloton will not be in contention for those bonus seconds, 3, 2 and 1, and that will be among our 7 leaders. We've been on the attack from the start. It took about 15 kilometers to establish this breakaway, and it was the man at the front, Julius Johansson, the 23-year-old, who instigated this break. Mark Stewart there, the 27-year-old from Scotland, silver medal winner last week in Glasgow, together with Ollie Wood, of course, in the medicine. And then we have more Danish riders, Jeppe Askov of Pallesen. We have Henrik Pedersen, our new king of the the new king of the mountains. No, he's second. Henrik Pedersen is there, the youngest. He's only 18. King of the hills, yes. Tobias Agard Hansen, Daniel Stampe, and Frederik Jensen, and he is our new king of the hills. A hilly king. the most famous kings from Denmark, of course, being Hamlet. Well, Hamlet the play. There is actually a castle on our fourth stage, of course. I think we're going to pass it. That was the site of Hamlet. Back to headwind now for the peloton. 29 kilometers to go with 15k out from our first passage of the finish line. And it's back to Uno X at the front, as we've seen most of the time. And the peloton, slowly riders are getting back, but as we're going towards a head-to-head crosswind again, there might be some nerves, especially if you're now racing in last position. It's not the most ideal place to be. Yesterday we lost 5 riders, most notably Maury van Zevenand, the Belgian rider of Soudal Quickstep. Luckily for him, no fractures in that crash. He's on the short list to go to the Vuelta alongside Remco Evenepoel. We also said goodbye to Chet Haga. He crashed in the neutral, the American rider of Human Powered Health, the man from Texas, but finished the stage with a broken wrist. He's now going back to Girona, where many of the Human Power Health Canadians and Americans actually live, to see if surgery is necessary. But as Brian explained before, a wrist fracture is usually a lengthy process to recover. We saw that in Tadej Pogačar. He had, of course, a scaphoid fracture, but there's just not a lot of blood vessels in these little bones that you have in your wrist and in your hand. So it takes a really long time for them to heal. But we do wish Chet Haga the best, and we will see him again when gravel season comes next year. Fabio Jakobsen has not been out of the top 15 of today's stage. He's always up there together with Michael Mørkøv, one of the oldest riders. The first time that Michael Mørkøv actually raced the Tour of Denmark was back in 2005. So he's been around for a while. 2005 was his first Tour of Denmark.
Yeah, I can remember, was it last year or was it a year before when I covered this race? He was just, applauded by the fans at the side of the road. Such a, not a race winner. Okay, on the road that is, on the track he's won quite a bit, but just being applauded by everybody, which was nice to see.
I think he was actually also on the track in Glasgow doing the medicine again, but I'm not 100% sure anymore. We had so many events there at the Track World Championships, both paracycling and track racing. But Jakobsen currently in 7th position there. And now we're back to our breakaway. 26 kilometers to go and a little bit with our 7 leaders. It's the shortest stage of our week, apart of course from the time trial. But it's been a very hard stage so far. The pace has always been up. It's not been exactly leisurely, Brian, has it?
No, you don't expect it. It's a short stage race. It's always going to be very active. We had a decent group yesterday. Another 7 riders today. They don't want to kind of hang around. They're all, apart from pretty much the King of the Hills and the other sprints in the 100-kilometre competition, they've pretty much kind of stayed together, and it's the perfect scenario to have that everybody's committed. Of course, a lot of these riders will probably know each other. They won't know the random Scot that's in there, but they all speak the same language, and they've all got one goal in mind now, and that's to try and kind of stay away to the circuit and hopefully try and stay away and for the stage. I think it's obviously going to be very difficult, but you have to believe in this scenario. That's having just less than 1 minute, but it will be a tricky kind of finishing circuit. So let's see what develops.
We did lose 1 rider out of our 7, and that is Jeppe Askov Pallesen of the Mazowsze Serskie Polski team. So we're down to 6 riders, and it looks like Hansen in last place is also having trouble following the pace there. Stewart looking to be one of the strongest of the 6 at the moment, together with Johansson. Nope, he's not taking over anymore, the man in last position, Tobias Agard Hansen. So we have Johansson, who was only 16 seconds down on our race leader Werenskjold. The same goes for Frederik Jensen, our new king of the mountains, currently in 2nd place in this group. 2nd place? Yeah. So those riders were in that first group yesterday. But like you said, Brian, you have to believe and quite possibly go on a little bit of an attack there on the local circuit. It's the kind of circuit where you can stay out of sight of the chasers.
Well, he's just taken another 3 seconds, hasn't he? He's already taken 3 seconds today. Julius Johansson for Denmark. He's taken 6 seconds in total in this stage, which moves him within 10 seconds of a race leader. So there was a bit of an upping of the tempo. You know, they're really putting a fight in, trying to hold off the peloton now, and you know that's why we've lost Pallesen from Mazowsze team, the Polish team. So, and then the Leopard rider just kind of hanging on the back now. He's kind of lost his legs a little bit, so it just means that the pace is up a little bit more now, and you know the riders with the strength left in their legs are starting to try and kind of push on a little bit now.
Getting ever closer to our Finnish town of Silkeborg as our breakaway is falling apart more and more. We're back to Uno-X at the front. I just checked the Finnish circuit again. It's basically just 4 corners. So it's basically a rectangle. So not as technical as we had it yesterday. But still, I would not give somebody like Julius Johansson a minute going onto the local circuits. He was very adamant straight from the start that he wanted to be in the breakaway, and I think he is he's planning something. The other teams, they just keep on looking at Uno-X to do the work, and they gladly oblige. Most of the riders still in this first group. We saw that Alfred Grenet, the youngest of them all, he's part of their development setup, is now dropped, but most of them are still here. Confirmation of that bonus sprint just in Gräsö. So Julius Johansson, he started the day 16 seconds down and is now 10 seconds behind Søren Werenskjold. Still looks very fresh there. The 23-year-old, normally racing for the Intermarché Circus Vanti team. You can see it with his cube bike. But since his team is racing elsewhere at the moment, he asked to be part of the national team. We have an international, not an international, but an array of teams joined under the flag of the Danish Cycling Union, which in Danish is also the DCU. We had this discussion about language yesterday, Brian, but Danish Cycling Union is just Danske Cykling Union. It's exactly the same.
We used in Scotland, we had SCU, Scottish Cycling Union, or Smith Cycling Union, which I used to call it. But they dropped the Union, and it's now just called Scottish Cycling.
It's still at the 58-second mark. The riders at the front, they are struggling. I think we are currently down to 5 riders, but especially Johansson and Pedersen are pretty strong. Stewart, of course, as well. 20 kilometers, 54 seconds. I don't think they'll have to leave it too late right now. Now also DSM, the team of Tobias Andersen, who was 4th yesterday, is moving up towards the front. I always like a little bit of an underdog win, Brian, but I'm afraid that the peloton is just going to sprint for it.
Yeah, I don't think it's the day for the breakaway. They've taken the team cars out now, and you know that spells doom to many riders kind of looking behind, just in neutral service. But you can't give up. You have to keep on going. But from the reaction in the peloton, it's more for getting position coming onto the circuit more than just chasing them down.
Tudor also moving to the front. They had a top 10 place yesterday with Sebastian Kolze. We have Lotto Destiny moving to the front as well. They have a strong sprinter with Jarne van der Paar. He is a young rider, part of their development team, but after some good results really early on in the season, he made the move up to the pro team, I think somewhere in February or maybe even January. He's got a strong sprint on him, but in this field I do doubt if he can actually pull it off and win it. 52 seconds, 19 kilometers to go. We're 2.5 kilometers out from reaching the Finnish circuit and 3k out from our first Finnish passage. Just 5.4 kilometers is our local circuit. It's straight lines, but it is, of course, an inner city circuit, so the roads can be a little bit tricky. But the pace is up going towards the Finnish circuit, signaling there that the road is narrowing. A little bit of the grass there. And now it's up to Tudor to really try hard. They're here with the Eriksson brothers. Kolze, Alexander Kamp, we saw him on the attack, short brief attack yesterday. Luc Wirtgen, the man from Luxembourg. Simon Pelot and Aivaris Nikoutis. Here are 6 riders still together, although the man in last place with 1:67, Tobias Hansen, has been skipping turns for a while. Stewart still looks very fresh there, Brian.
Yes, a couple of them looking okay, starting to push on, and they just have to kind of ignore the rider at the back there. And I think a couple of riders have asked the question, he just doesn't have the legs anymore. But the teams behind, not really a concerted chase. It's all about positioning, so that's why the gap is coming down to just over 40 seconds now. It's everybody wants to get onto this circuit in a very good position.
Last reminder of our 6 leaders. Currently leading is Frederik Jensen. Then in the colours of the Danish flag, Julius Johansson with 1:54. Henrik Pedersen. In the purple and yellow, it's Mark Stewart. Then we have Tobias Hansen in last position and Daniel Stampe. Those are our 6 leaders, 1 man from Scotland and 5 from Denmark. Looks like we did have a little bit of adverse weather and we lost our feed. But hopefully on the city circuit it will be back imminently. And there it is with the Tudor Pro Cycling team. Lots of people out here on the streets of Silkeborg, a city of 55,000 people. With history going back to prehistoric times. Settlements in the Mesolithic, Neolithic, so Stone Age periods. A lot of archaeological finds indicating human activity long, long ago. In the 19th century, it was quite a prominent town in the textile industry, especially the Gudina River, which is just where we're racing right now, was very important. The water resources, we had the textile mills there, the factories, and Silkeborg is actually Silk Fortress, Silk Castle. Although I do wonder if they actually had caterpillars here producing the silk. Anyhow, here we are in the finish straight, and the gap, Brian, is down to 37 seconds. The breakaway is sadly not going to make it. Waiting for the images to come back as we just started the first of 3 local circuits in Silkeborg. We're slightly ahead of slightly behind our fastest schedule. So we're racing around the 44 kilometers an hour schedule. With Flanders Baloise at the front. They had a good top 5 place yesterday with Vito Braat, a rider who moves on to Intermarché Circus Venty next year. Dan Holen now at the front, the very tall rider for the Lidl Trek team, together with Mes Pedersen and of course Matthias Skelmose. And if the roads are wide like this one, Brian, it's going to be really hard to attack. But at 3K from the finish line, so when we turn off this main road, we do have a climb, and that climb has a gradient of I'm already on stage 3. Has a gradient of 6.5% for a kilometer long. And it comes 3 kilometers out from the finish line. So I would say that there's a place where you can actually try something.
Yeah, I think just similar to yesterday, we'll see a very active finishing circuit. It does look as if the breakaway is starting to suffer now in this small incline, and coming back to just over 20 seconds now. So it does look as if we're going to see possibly a very similar finish to today's stage as we saw yesterday. So apologies to everybody. We're just losing the feed from time to time from our host broadcast. As soon as we get these pictures, the live pictures.
And now we just got the catch of the riders in the breakaway. We still have Mark Stewart out front, Julius Johansson, the very young Henrik Pedersen of the Colo Quick team, and I think it's Stamper of Suri Kalras, but with the blue jersey it might as well be the Bornholm team. But Stewart is glancing over his shoulder, Brian. 13k out is still a long time to go on your own.
It is, but if they kind of hung around, the peloton would have been on them. So it's all about getting positioning on this climb, and now Hooley at the front there for Lidl Trek, just setting a tempo with his kind of, I was going to say 2 leaders, possibly 3 leaders behind, including Mads Pedersen, Skelmos and Tom Squinch. But yeah, just eking out another few seconds is Mark Stewart. I told you he's on some good form, and as a Scot here, he wants to kind of prove his worth and I think he's worthy of, given that kind of opportunity. He's ridden strongly all day. You got to remember he was riding the track just last week, a few days ago, and he's still got some kind of power in the legs. He may just take that opportunity to look behind and see that there's 3 riders coming up, and maybe kind of use them a little bit instead of kind of trying to go alone. And I think that's what he's doing at the moment. Just a glance behind, allow him to be caught again, and these are the kind of 4 strongest riders left at the front of the race now.
26 seconds now for Mark Stewart, for Johansson, for Pedersen, and for Jensen. Jacopo Mosca leading the peloton, followed by Dan Hole. We have Nes Pedersen in the green. We have Søren Werenskjold in the blue. Of course, our European champion is Fabio Jakobsen. 12.5 kilometers to go. Last time we were here in Silkeborg in the Tour of Denmark was 2019. It was a day that Tish Benoot won the stage. We did that hill 5 times, and a group of 7 broke away, and Tish attacked in the final kilometer, chasing peloton 3 seconds behind, courtesy of the Cycling Mole. So Pedersen, Stampe, Johansson and Mark Stewart, and they are going all in, Brian. They have to go all in, not look at each other, not poker, and just go for it.
Yeah, that's all you can do. This lap is just up and down this climb. I don't think the finish is too much to worry about. Still think it will be reduced sprint in the end, but I said that yesterday, and we had Werenskjold just kind of clip off last time. So there's a big opportunity the last time up for someone to go, but I just think there's so much strength left in the peloton that I think Lido Trek are potentially the favourites with Mads Pedersen, and they seem to be wanting to control things. But I don't think we've seen the end of Mark Stewart, Scott in the purple at the back of this group.
No, he was of course the one attacking, and he might try it again. It's now up to Lido Trek with Mosca, Hole, Pedersen, Skelmose, Squinch, the 5 riders leading the peloton at the moment. They're not that far behind. It's 22 seconds on the GPS, and Mosca's trying to get everything that he still has left in the legs to try and close that gap. We still see Werenskjold a little bit isolated there in the middle. His team, Uno-X, have of course done a whole lot of work during the majority of the stage. 25 seconds is the difference at the moment between our 4 leaders and the peloton. This is going to be a very interesting final, Brian. Are they going to make it, or are they not?
I don't think they're going to make it.
Spoil sport.
I'm hoping they will, because Mark Stewart is, a very good finisher as well, but I don't think they're going to make it. There's too much firepower behind. We're talking. Oh, there's a crash at the back as well.
There. Riders getting off the road. Ooh, a big crash as well. We have Aaron Gate there. We have Michael Valgren involved.
Yeah.
Michael Valgren involved. 165 is Robin Skifield, one rider of the Q36.5 team. And this is Michael Valgren, Hundal. Yeah, we had hoped to see him on this circuit, but that is sadly not to be. Back to our leaders. It looked like some riders were caught off-road there on that little bit of the grassy patch.
Yeah, just try and get out of the way more than anything, Josie. That's all you can do. You see a crash happen and you take manoeuvres, off the road and out the way of things. But, we're no sooner through the finish than we're back onto this climb again. I just think it's just a case of big wide roads, everybody trying to kind of move up at the same time. You've got to consider that on this circuit we've got so much road furniture as well.
Currently leading Henrik Pedersen. I already introduced him to you. He's only 18 years old. From next year on, he will be part of the development team of Uno-X 2 years, and already signed a 2-year contract for the 25 and 26 seasons with Uno-X. Very promising young man. Sprinter and climber. He is good in both. won races on the flat in the Netherlands, but also won quite a few races in Italy, in France, in Switzerland when the road was undulating. So a very versatile ride. He's only 18 and one of the strongest in this group.
Yeah, the gap's still holding at 20 seconds. Last time up, Mark Stewart in the purple decided to have a crack, and I think the best thing he did was to kind of wait for the group behind. You know, they are within touching distance now, and it does look as if they'll be brought back, but there's still a big peloton behind.
It's almost over now for our leaders, as we have the first attacks. Is that... No, it's not Mess Pedersen. It is, it is Mess Pedersen, of course, in that green jersey. Quickly followed there by Anton Charmig. We also have Martin Svitek, the bronze medal winner of the Under-23 World Championship. So this is a big move there by Mess Pedersen. We have Lucas Eriksson trying to follow.
Yesterday.
Yeah, most definitely. If you haven't watched yesterday, he had 2 flat tyres, including one at, what, 20 kilometres from the finish line, something like that, and was almost a minute behind and had to chase back to the front all by himself, and still finished in 3rd place.
He wants to win the stage, and he wanted to try and win yesterday, and it was a hard enough stage for him to be able to do that. If they roll round this circuit and they allow the teams to control things, then I think Jakobsen will have him on this finish. Jakobsen, I think for me, is the faster of the two when it comes to the finish. So what Mads Pedersen in the green is trying to do for Ludo Trek is break things up, make it hard, get maybe a kind of smaller group. But the only problem he's got is he was trying to do it yesterday, he's trying to do it today. Of course he's going to be followed. Everybody knows he's a big favourite in what he's trying to do, but I know he's got a green jersey on, but he's also got a target on his back.
Another attack by Julius Johansson, the man who was in the breakaway. He's just going to try it once more. Still has something left in the tank. He was the first man to attack on the day and established the break after about 15 kilometres. But his move is quickly countered there by one of the riders of Tudor.
Did you see the riders in the blue and the white there for Soudal Quickstep? They're just closing things down. They aren't trying to progress things at the front. It's just about policing things, keeping it together, not allowing riders to kind of break away. What they're trying to do is, pave the way for Jakobsen to win this stage today. So they're not going to contribute. They're just going to close it down.
Kasper Pedersen closing down that move. And we can still see that Werenskjold, our leader in the blue leader's jersey, is in the pack. He's not as active as Pedersen is, but he is moving up. He doesn't have any teammates with him anymore, Brian, apart from Charmig there at the front.
Yeah, Charmig was just following Mads Pedersen. I think he's got a teammate right next to him, but they have used up some of the firepower today already with the chase. But I think he'll have to kind of look after himself a little bit.
If you want to avoid a bunch sprint, you have to launch your attack there on that little climb that comes 3k out from the finish line, because it's basically just downhill all the way to the line, as we can see right here. A little bit of a headwind in the finish straight, making it, well, a little bit more difficult for a solo attacker. But I do think that Mess Pedersen is going to try something and possibly avoid that bunch sprint.
Yeah, he's going to try again. That's why he's put his teammates at the front. Mosca and Hula just behind. So he's called upon them to keep the tempo high, go on to this climb. And he's going to try again because he knows that Soudal Quickstep, want the European champion to sprint to victory today. And on this finish, I think it really suits Fabio Jakobsen. But let's see what Mads Pedersen has got left. The last time up here, he tried to kind of go alone, but he's got plenty of riders that were able to go with him.
We have a little bit better discernible finish line today. Yesterday, all the stickers kind of blew off due to the rain.
No, it was the Soudal Quickstep car passed through the finishing line yesterday at 119 kilometres an hour and wrecked the stickers.
No way. Oops. Now it's up to Lotto Destiny, who have Jarno van der Paar there. They have Florian Vermeer still there. Harry Sweeney, of course, and Brent van Moer.
Yeah, well, it's Brent van Moer. It's up there as well.
Yep, number 65.
Yeah, he was a rider that was trying yesterday, and I think he's the sort of rider that will be looking to try and do something. So Brent van Moer, definitely Mads Pedersen having a go here. Magnus Kort is being moved up as well. He'll be looking at it, just looking for the white jersey. He's there and thereabouts, but he's just on the right hand side, being looked after by Michael Morkov.
Tobias Ludvigsson in the colours of Q36.5, bringing Nicholas Sikowski to the front, the Canadian champion. But now it's up to Lidl Trek again to make sure that Mads Pedersen in that green jersey can try again on this hill together with Skelmose.
Do you know what the important thing is? You know, you can see Warren's called. He knows what's happening. You know, yep. the leader. But Skelmose this time is on his wheel, Mads Pedersen's wheel. So it'll be a case of, if Mads goes, will Skelmose let him go? Will he just leave the gap?
We have an attack from one of the Bardiani guys. I think I saw the number 7, Alessandro Santaromita.
Well, that time Skelmose did leave the gap open to Mads Pedersen, but Warren's called knew what was happening, was straight on him. So Mads Pedersen looking round, you can see the race leader here, but small gaps appearing. I just think it's not hard enough. This climb isn't difficult enough. There's enough Soudal Quick Step riders here, and I think this is going to come down to a sprint, and Fabio Jakobsen, the European champion, could be odds on the winner today.
We have Santaromita, Pedersen, Werenskjold, Jarno van der Paar is the rider there for Lotto Destiny, and an attack by Brent van Moer of the Lotto Destiny team. Who's following? Is that Magnus Kort? Can't really see. It's not.
It's not. Skelmose is there, but you can just see the Soudal Quick Step riders there as well. Just look a little bit like James Shaw there for the EF Education Easy Post, but I just think it's going to come back together. There's not enough. If you want to go, Brent van Moer just going over the top here. He should have gone at the bottom to try and make the difference. It's just not long enough, this climb, to make a big difference.
These are the riders at the back of the peloton. It will be pretty difficult to get back. We have the New Zealand champion there with James de Ram. But Werenskjold is right on the money there. We have Tobias Lund Andersen on the wheel of Werenskjold. Also Alexander Kamp there for Tudor. Skelmose and Brent van Moer still powering on. Remember, he was third in the Tour de Wallonie behind Tarling and Gunnar, and that was due to that really long time trial there. 2.9 kilometers to go. We have Brent van Moer, Matthias Skelmose currently leading the peloton. And where is Jakobsen? There he is. He's not far behind. He's on the wheel now of Mads Pedersen.
Yeah, the rider just going on the attack. It wasn't James Shaw, it was Honoré that was looking to do something. This looks like Kamp as well. He did this yesterday, and just look at the race leader. He's just following everything. He's super strong, but I just think that this will come back. They're not going to ride with each other, and this is going to be some sort of sprint. But does lightning strike twice in one race?
Well, the Hippo, as he's called by his friend Andreas Leknesund, who will join the team next year, the Hippo of Maandal, where he comes from, because he's so big, and he says, well, I'm one of the biggest in the peloton, but I'm also strong and dangerous, and that is exactly what hippos are. Very active ride there by Brent van Moer. Mads Pedersen has everything under control. We have Andersen there for DSM. Looks like one of the riders of Bolton Equities is there as well. Might be Logan Curry. But we go towards that final kilometre. Charles-Etienne Chrétien also moving up there for Human Powered Health. But at the moment, Mads Pedersen has everything under control, as has our race leader and the European champion. It's a sprint between these three. We do expect Lund Andersen to return. Tim de Klerk getting to the front now to do a little bit of work together with Morkov for Jakobsen. We also have Matthias Kopecky there for Team Novo Nordisk, the Czech rider who lives in the Netherlands. Had a good result yesterday, just outside of the top 10. And here is our final kilometre. Well, it's going to be Werenskjold with a little bit of a gap again, really going all out, glancing over his shoulder now and seeing that Fabio Jakobsen is looking cool as a cucumber. On the wheel of Jakobsen, we have Mess Pedersen. Skelmos is still up there for his GC, but this is the final straight. Morkov is a little bit further behind. It's up to Tim de Klerk now, leaving it to the rider of the UNO-X team with Werenskjold on his wheel. I think this is Charmich again. No, it's Larsen, Niklas Larsen. And now the sprint lead out for Kasper Pedersen and Jakobsen. Pedersen as well, a sprint with Werenskjold, Jakobsen, Pedersen, and also Søren Kragh Andersen. We have Lund Andersen, but a fantastic victory by Jakobsen. Absolutely uncontested, the strongest and the fastest of the day. But it looked like Werenskjold got himself some bonus seconds, so he does stay in that leader's jersey. Nice helicopter footage, by the way, of the sprint.
Well, it was you that complained yesterday not getting the perfect footage. I think you got the perfect footage there. It wasn't a wide shot, it was the the helicopter shot there. But a good win from the European champion, Jakobsen. A bit of fighting behind with Mads Pedersen. But, that was a clear win by the European champion there. Good victory, well led out there. And just it goes to show you that, the form that he was shown yesterday, he delivered that stage win today. Just looking at it from the front, Mads Pedersen was kind of trying to go, but he just didn't have the legs. It was a strong performance there from Jakobsen. Nice and easy in the end. But like you say, that Werenskjold just manages to kind of hang on there and take 6 bonus seconds.
Also, Martin Skort was up there.
I think it was up there in third place. There was a little bit of, I think it was Søren Kragh and Mads Pedersen kind of trying to fight for the right wheel. I'd like to see that again.
Fabio Jakobsen, win number 44. The last one was in the Baloise Belgium Tour, where he had 2 stage wins. Of course, we all know what happened there on that circuit, that car racing circuit in Nogaro on stage 4. And he abandoned the race, didn't start stage number 12 after struggling through all the mountain stages. But Werenskjold really was on fire again today, and for me, with his time trial, is still the top favourite to win the overall. But still 3 days to go, so. The sprint again, Brian, for you.
Yeah, well, Werenskjold, he tried what he did yesterday. I'm just watching Mads Pedersen and Søren Kragh here. They were really battling. No, it wasn't Søren Kragh, it was the lead-out man for him. I think that was okay. I was just wanting to see if there was any headbutts or anything like that, but nothing there. But yeah, good result from Søren Kragh to steal the bonuses away from Mads Pedersen. But I think Werenskjold there, taking those 6 seconds. I don't think Jakobsen is a rider to worry about. He picks up 4 seconds, takes 4 seconds back. But Werenskjold, having another 6 seconds added to, he started 12 seconds in front. He's starting to have a nice little lead there. There's nothing that Mads Pedersen can do. He's trying to jump away and he's on. He's trying to sprint. He's trying to do everything at the moment. I'm sure he'll come out fighting in the next couple of days, but that was quite an easy win there. As easy as it gets for a sprinter there. He just looked strong. He was in the right position. He never really panicked. He's getting over these climbs. He looks as if he's on good form. Yesterday proved it. Today, yet again, I think the fastest man won today's stage.
Good lead out as well by Kasper Pedersen. Tomorrow we go to the birthplace of Tony Rominger in Veje. 209 kilometers long. We have about 2,000 meters of elevation. Another challenging finish circuit of 9.8 kilometers. And then on Friday, it's as flat as it comes. And then on Saturday, we have a time trial. So these bonus seconds that Søren Werenskjold took here today, and with his time trial as a former world champion in the discipline in the under-23s, well, good luck beating him. And that picture just yet, that little boy with Mads Pedersen is what makes our sport so beautiful. The inspiration is right there in front of you. You can touch your idols and have your picture taken with them as well. Jakobsen was faster than Werenskjold today. That was not a surprise, but another 6 bonus seconds there for the man from Mondal of the Uno-X team. Here we go. Jakobsen, Werenskjold, Kragh Andersen, Lund Andersen, Pedersen, Skelmose, Kort Nielsen, Jensen Plowright, Matthias Kopecky, nice top 10 there for the youngster from the Netherlands, and Filippo Magli of the Green Project Bardiani. Well, Brian, a very attractive stage. Let's do it again tomorrow. We have quite a lot of elevation to come, with Werenskjold taking especially time on his nearest rivals when it comes to the GC in Pedersen and Kragh Andersen. Tomorrow we're back, Brian Smith and myself, Jose Bain, same time as today. Here we go with today's highlights. The shortest road stage, Kjellerup to Silkeborg, 163.3 kilometers. And we had a breakaway of 7 riders, 1 man from the UK, from Scotland here, Mark Stewart, and 6 riders from Denmark. Julius Johansson, the instigator of the break. Frederik Jensen, Daniel Stampe, Tobias Aagaard Hansen, Henrik Pedersen, and Jeppe Askov Pallesen. It was a battle for the King of the Hills classification between the man in blue, that is Frederik Jensen, and the man in green with the black and white stripes, and that is the 18-year-old Henrik Pedersen. Pedersen won the first King of the Hill sprint, but the other 2 were won by Jensen, and that means that Jensen is our new King of the Hills. This is the 100-kilometer sprint that went to Daniel Stampe, and Henrik Pedersen, the 18-year-old, he was on grand form today. Very promising young rider, because here he goes again. This is our last of the 2 King of the Hill sprints, but Jensen is on his wheel, and just before the top of the hill, which is actually the highest point in Denmark at 173 meters. It is Jensen securing that jersey. Sadly, in the final 10 kilometers, we had a big crash with Michael Valgren there involved, amongst others. And then the final penultimate time up the climb here in the town of Silkeborg. A very active Mads Pedersen. Julius Johansson still going strong there after being in the break. We had a late attack here in the final by Alexander Kamp, quickly followed there by Magnus Kort. We had Søren Werenskjold in his leader's jersey, Brent van Moer very active, but in the end it would come down to a sprint in a downhill from that climb at 3K from the finish line. It's Tim de Klerk, Casper Pedersen in front of Fabio Jakobsen, and then going full gas to the finish line, and absolutely nobody matching the speed there of Jakobsen. He wins the stage, but it's Werenskjold in second place, taking valuable seconds towards the general classification. He keeps that blue leader's jersey, takes some time on Mads Pedersen and Søren Kragh Andersen, his main rivals when it comes to that time trial on Saturday. But tomorrow we have our Queen stage with 209 kilometers to Veje, where we were in the Tour de France last year, and which is also the birthplace of Tony Rominger.